Here we go. CFB 900 live for a Sunday night. In the next 900 seconds, Bobby and I are going to give to you our 6 biggest takeaways from the weekend from a gambling perspective. We'll take a look at the current betting market as Sunday's openers are posted. And before we get you out of here, we'll give you 3 best bets this week. Bobby, we're on the clock. So let's go ahead and dive right into 2 guys lost their job today. We're seeing programs for the first time maybe exit their coaches earlier and earlier than what they have. Deshaun Foster's out at UCLA, and Pry is out at Virginia Tech.
Yep, obviously both teams off embarrassing losses this weekend to New Mexico and Old Dominion. BT, I think this was both the right moves for both programs to start. BT does host Wofford this weekend in an FCS matchup, and UCLA has a bye before facing Northwestern. So I wouldn't rush to go bet those dead cat bounces off the head coach fired. The Hokies are a team, obviously, we bet in our first show under the season win total and feel pretty good about that one. I think we can chalk that one up. But honestly, just going back to the first point, in the current NIL portal culture, I don't know if I'm going to rush to buy these teams that make a change like this. I think it's decently likely that because only 3 games into the season, remember the new redshirt rule where if guys play 4 or less games, they can take that red shirt and preserve eligibility. So I wonder if we're going to see that kind of happen with these 2 teams, knowing that both staffs are changing over in this mercenary kind of environment. Personally, I'll need to see either of these teams give effort on the field before I even consider backing them. Things could get worse than both Blacksburg and Pasadena this season.
Takeaway number 2, the backyard brawl. A big surprising upset win for Rich Rod and the Mountaineers.
Yeah, we talked about that one a little bit last week too, where Pitt took a ton of money all week based on the West Virginia injuries. But also, I just want to say, this game absolutely needs to be played every year. It was awesome. They announced an extension for the series. Love those regional rivalries that we have. But there's a couple takeaways here. First off, be hypercritical of the Pitt red zone offense. Just a ton of disasters. They're just first 2 drives. I think it was 3 points combined. Pick Holstein can't seem to make a play. He's a guy who I've really just soured on. He came out hot last year and really kind of faded. Nard Dog choosing to punt late with a chance to put the game away. And they blew a 10-point lead with 5 minutes to play. Couple other notes here. Reed, their stud running back. He left the game in the first quarter with an injury, did not return. They also had, just as we moved to the late 4th and overtime, ton of defensive guys go down with injuries. This was a team that I know in my notes I have starred of depth is a major concern for this Pitt Panthers team, and a team I was like, okay, we're going to fade in the second half of the year. Worth taking a look at that injury report for Pitt literally every game moving forward now and seeing if we're going to start fading them sooner rather than later.
Speaking of fading teams, the Liberty Flames are fading fast. This was a team that, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, was the second lowest odds, only behind Boise State as far as to win a conference. And now it looks like Liberty can't win a game.
Yeah, major concerns for Liberty there. And it seems like there might be a major culture problem. Jamie Chadwell hinted towards this, locker room problems last year. Obviously, Caden Salter wanted to transfer to Auburn going into last year, couldn't for some reason. I won't speculate why, but he's obviously now at Colorado. Lost his job there. But last year it seemed like he didn't want to be there. They were memorably upset by Kennesaw State as 27-point dogs at one point last year. But now that in their program in Conference USA and in the G5 that has just tons more money and tons more support than all of their counterparts in that league, and they're having yet another disappointing season. They're 1-2 now, 3 straight bad performances. That main performance in week 1 was very uninspiring as well. And now they lose outright at Bowling Green to an upstart MAC program there. They're a team who that I've dropped a touchdown in my ratings, and I think Conference USA is now more wide open than ever. And I think it's a league where you can start kind of looking at and hunting for maybe a long shot in that league.
Takeaway number 4, 9 in a row for the Georgia Bulldogs over the Tennessee Volunteers. Another disappointing loss for Josh Heupel.
Yeah, obviously we did not get there on the best bet, losing by a hook there, but honestly that one wasn't deserved, to say the least, on our end. High scoring game. Obviously here we saw both coaches, I think, And I was disappointed by both play for a field goal at different times. And I think in a high-scoring game like this, it should be common knowledge where when you're playing a game into the, this game's going to end up in the high 30s, low 40s, somewhere in that range. You have to stop playing for field goals. You have to try to maximize your points. I know Heupel obviously played for one at the end with the kid. Just brutal for him, just missing that kick badly at the end of regulation. And then Kirby had 2 possessions, one in the first half and one, I believe, in the third quarter, where the play calling got a little conservative and where he was just trying to play for a field goal to keep him in that game and hanging around. Honestly, they both could have lost those games. Obviously, Heupel did. But Georgia could have also lost this game and let it get away from them based on those decisions and based on how Tennessee was playing that way. Because the second takeaway here, Georgia's secondary, woof. That's not a great unit. I think that's key to say right here. And I think that is something to watch for in future games here in SEC play, that Georgia might actually, depending on matchups, be an over team. And I don't think that was something we really fully expected to say, as you expect Kirby Smart and his defense to be a little more buttoned up, especially on the back end.
Takeaway number 5 from the weekend, return of the U. It's looking very likely that not only is Miami now the leader for the ACC, but potentially, Heisman. I guess Beck right now is a Heisman favorite. Should we be looking at Miami Hurricane national title futures?
Yeah, I think we need to start to consider that. I know when I ran my numbers today, they're and updated stuff, they're starting to inch closer to definitely being a top 10 team, but maybe potentially in a couple weeks, depending on, future results. Obviously, at Florida this week, Florida State in a couple. They're inching closer to potentially being like a top 5 team, closer and closer. We're seeing these high profile teams across the sport have these flaws. And the more and more I watch the Hurricanes this season, I'm having trouble finding a flaw with their roster. They deserve to be considered among the nation's best in mind. Beck looks like a great coming off Tommy John. And my opinion should be a clear favorite for the Heisman. In my mind, they clearly hit at wide receiver, which was a question coming in the year, as was the defensive backfield. 2 coordinators I'm a fan of. The hardest part here, and we've talked about it before, is Mario hoping he needs to get the hell out of the way of this roster. And you saw it at the end of the Notre Dame game in week 1, where he just kind of goes in the shell. And of course, many other games in previous years, the Georgia Tech game comes to mind, all these other instances. But yeah, I think that, if you shop around, you see a Miami 20 out there, which I know is at some domestics. I think that's a decent bet.
Our last takeaway from Saturday was just the market at large. Could you walk us through some of the movement that we saw, especially in the Alabama game, and then the movement we saw in Oregon at Northwestern?
Yeah, and I just want to be transparent here. I know I'm not an end boss in college football betting space. I know that. So just kind of going a little bit big picture. Obviously, each year there are different market dynamics, market timing, things like that you try to look at. This year, the most unique one has been this over-aggressive, I would call it, one-way action we're seeing on some of these games, especially late week. And for those who don't know, on Saturday morning before kickoff and whatnot, it takes a lot of money to move a market just across the board, not just in one spot. A lot of max bets from some very smart, very sophisticated people who are not doing podcasts like this. But just to be frank, right before kick, you mentioned Wisconsin got steamed to oblivion, and a move I disagreed with because I liked Alabama. By the way, it does not matter who won this right now. Northwestern, Ohio was another one in a game that was like 34.5 and got bet down. I mean, we got some 27.5. You were texting about that one yesterday. And then there was other games. We saw gradual movement one way across the week that blow through. Like I'm on one side of a number, it goes to my number, and then past it even further. Vandy, Old Dominion, Florida, Georgia Tech. Some of those games. It just surprised me by the length of these moves that we're not seeing any bounce back, any buyback on these. I would like to avoid, like we were with Wisconsin, I would like to avoid being on the other side of these big game day moves, because I respect whoever's doing this. I respect you. But this is a major market development that we just need to continue to monitor and need to consider each and every Saturday.
That takes us right into the week 4 betting market. Bobby, could you walk us through some games that you're most interested in right now?
Yep, let's start right here. Go in rotation order here. 329, 330. Illinois, Indiana. Illinois in the popularity polls. Illinois is a top 10 team. I'm here to tell you that they absolutely are not. I have them closer in the mid 20s. The market clearly agrees. Indiana out to a 4.5-point favorite in this one. Openers varied here, but kind of settling down here. This was one I hoped would open shorter. As I'm kind of looking to fade the Illini as we kind of move later in the season. Alas, this isn't the week to do it in my mind. Indiana has played 3 glorified preseason games. Illinois did have a test at Duke. We mentioned kind of the box score merits in that one. Duke had a ton of turnovers in plus territory in that one that made the scoreboard kind of get away from them there. Both teams obviously coming off program highs. Their ratings near the true ceiling of what they could be. It's a fantastic data point in a game I'm really looking forward to watching, but I'm not interested in betting at this point. Next one, 337, 338. Those are rotation numbers for those who don't know. Troy and Buffalo. Really funny thing with this one. I know Brad Powers tweeted about it as well. But yesterday, Troy quarterback Goose Crowder left the game, did not return. Head coach Gerald Parker, by the way, said he's out indefinitely with a shoulder injury. Just FYI. DK opened this game overnight at -1.5, and Circa opened at 1:30 today at -12.5. Obviously, doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you that both those games were wrong. It's settled in around that. Actually, like Troy took money like right before we hopped on here. So his status is something to monitor. But like I said, coach said he's out indefinitely. But this is a great lesson every Saturday. Write down key players, especially quarterbacks that are injured when they don't return, and have that game circled when the market opens the next day, especially in these smaller conferences. And who knows, maybe this is the one we talk about at the end of the show. Next game, 349, 350, the big noon kickoff, Texas Tech and Utah. Another good lesson here, in my mind, that we'll talk about here in a second. This is going to be a difference of opinion game in my mind. I expect decent two-way in this one, and for it to live in this kind of the general vicinity of 3.5 and 4.5, somewhere in there. Neither of the teams have played anyone good, and obviously the Utes win against UCLA, where they look crisp as hell, has aged quite poorly. Red Raiders QB Baron Morton, he's looked good. He's been banged up over the course of multiple seasons, so it's nice to see him healthy and hopefully reaching his full potential. Something to keep in mind here is Utah is one of the more underrated home field advantages in the sport. When you factor in elevation, obviously it being a very early kickoff in Salt Lake, I'm going to be a factor there as well. No official play for me in this one right now, but I'm interested to see the market opinions and when that market timing is that we just talked about earlier comes in on these games. Next one, 354, 353, Auburn, Oklahoma. We mentioned it on the market segment last week, how Temple was being bought off that spot, coming off the Michigan game. Look ahead to this one. And lo and behold, Oklahoma did eventually take money here. Auburn played with its food a little against South Alabama, was a potential look-ahead spot for Arnold. This is unfortunate here, where Michigan didn't use Bryce Underwood's legs as part of the game plan. And we have no clue how Oklahoma wants to defend a running quarterback like Arnold this year. Obviously, there's some familiarity there. This market's rating the Sooners as a top 10 team, with them being 5.5, 6, 6.5, as you see on the board here. I'm not really sure how much higher this one can go, so I think there might be a little Auburn money at some point. 355, 356, Tulane, Ole Miss. For me, this number implies that Simmons is in. Now, the D2 transfer backup did perform well against Arkansas, but obviously we don't think there's much of a defense there. I think Tulane is a different animal. That's a quality program, quantity team. I think they can compete here, and if this ticks up off the Simmons news, I think we might look towards the green wave here later in the week. And then last one, 373, 374, South Carolina, Missouri. It was announced today, another quarterback note. Lenore Sellers had a concussion against Vandy, will be evaluated this week. This number here is without a doubt a no Sellers number. No doubt. So now that we have talked about how we're skeptical of the South Carolina roster, replacing all the NFL talent, and it is a huge downgrade from Sellers to the backup. But if Sellers announced out, you don't need to bet this game. It's well factored in now. I do think this is a bit aggressive on Missouri. I don't think this is bettable right now. But yeah, this is a stark move from the look ahead markets, somewhere in that 10-point range.
And you can see right now live on the screen, it seems like Missouri is going to keep taking money. Yeah, like we're probably going to see 14.
Yeah, this is something special over here. Like, that's nuts. I think before the injury, I would I was lower on South Carolina anyway, but like somewhere around a touchdown, right? Like, would probably be fair with sellers. Without, like, it's expensive on Missouri. So
yeah, and you really have to question just how much can Beamer rally that locker room. And right now, Missouri is hitting on all cylinders. If Drinkwitz can hang a number on South Carolina, I think that he will, just simply because it's going to instill even more confidence in Prebula and that offense and that fan base, as Missouri is just trying to overcome that whole little brother. We're not supposed to be in the SEC, but yet here we are. They want to keep everything moving in the right path. And I think if they can put up 3, 4, 5 touchdown spread on South Carolina, I think they definitely will.
For sure.
Before we get into best bets, please give us a like and subscribe. It definitely lets Bobby and I know that you like our content, and we certainly appreciate it, and lets the algorithm honestly know that this is good, valuable betting content. So we'll jump into our first best bet.
Yep.
Under 42.5, Troy Buffalo.
Yep. Mentioned it a little bit earlier and hinted at it. The side's kind of moving a little bit, but we like under here at Buffalo Troy. I still think there's some meat on the bone here at under 42.5. Two slow-paced teams. I thought the Troy quarterback, the backup who replaced Goose, wasn't ready to play. And then Buffalo kind of lacked explosives in a game against Kent. So I think we see just a low-scoring game. Two good defenses. Troy still has a good defensive unit, as does Buffalo. So under 42.5 in this big game on Saturday.
Next game, we're going to play a side, and one we've already kind of talked about. We're going to fade West Virginia, or we're going to lay it with the Kansas Jayhawks.
Back to the well with Kansas here. We're going to lay the 12.5 here. So this is one nice little situational spot with a slight number edge. Obviously, West Virginia, the backyard brawl, as mentioned, one of the best rivalries in college football, underrated. So huge emotional win for West Virginia, win of the year for them, regardless of what happens the rest of the year. That team isn't doing anything this year. And then Kansas coming off a bye. This is an offense that can put up a number. West Virginia had those injuries, the wide receiver, the running back out for the year. This is the second game where I think we might see this take effect. So we'll lay the big number, go back to the well with Kansas like we did in week 0, and see a nice 2-touchdown plus Jayhawk win.
Final best bet of the night, Mississippi State laying the 22.5. They're coming off a slacking of a SWAC school, Alcorn State, 69-0.
Yep, and Mississippi State's been a team we've kind of liked quite a bit this year. They're definitely a competent operation this season. It'll be interesting to see how they play in SEC play a couple times once we get there. But this is more of a fade of Northern Illinois. I'm on the other side of 24 here. They will play slow pace, so a little bit of concern there. But I just think they lost their defensive coordinator, who I thought was like the best coach on their program, and a ton of defensive players. I think Mississippi State can put up a huge number here. Northern Illinois won't be able to score to keep up. So we'll lay the big price with Cowbell.
That'll do it for tonight's show. You can follow Bobby on X at BobbyDigital2. You can follow the show at CFB900. We will be back here live Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern. So go ahead and set your calendars. Until then, best of luck. See you soon.